guys, Asher coming at you today in Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome to the video, guys. How are you all doing? I am doing fantastic. I'm in a great mood today. I'm in a great mood this entire week so far. Hopefully, it doesn't change for the worse.
What do we call you, sir?
First name, Mr. Last name.
Today we're going to talk about really the number one question that I get, I would say like in aggregate since I started this YouTube channel is not only who should I upgrade next, but how should I decide? What is it about a champion that makes you want to 6-star them, makes you want to invest any of your hard-earned resources inside the game on those champions? So today we're going to answer that question. We're going to divide it into the beginning, the mid, and the end game and talk about the 3 factors you should be considering and what types of champions make the most sense, what have the most inherent value here out of all the champions in the game. But before that, I have a hard-hitting, personal, private question for you guys. I was out the other night celebrating a friend's birthday, right? Had a few drinks and we got to crazy locker room talk, you know. What's your favorite sitcom of all time? That's my life right now. That's the dad life, right? And dude, my friends gave me a little bit of crap. Gave me a little bit of crap for my answer. And I wanna ask you guys, what's your favorite sitcom of all time? I'm not like the biggest sitcom guy in the world. I like more serious stuff. I like dramas and I like, you know, documentaries and stuff like that. But I do like the occasional stand-up comedy, sitcom, stuff like that. And mine is King of Queens, man. I love Kevin James in King of Queens. Am I stupid? I didn't even start watching it until it was on syndication, until it was on reruns. If you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend you give it a shot.
You know what, boys? Let's hit the streets.
If you're looking for a corny sitcom, right? All my friends were like, dude, are you kidding me? They're all like Seinfeld and stuff like that. I'm like, nah, man. Nah, it's about King of Queens. King of Queens! Here we go into the video, into the raid portion of the video here. Early game. So what are you trying to do in the early game, guys? It's pretty basic, right? Well, first of all, before we even get to the early game, what are the 3 things that we always talk about here in terms of, since, you know, 2019, how to evaluate a champion, right? The 3 V's, if you will. So listen up, boys and girls. Number 1 is value over replacement. How much better are they over the champion that you're going to be replacing them with on your teams? Number 2 is versatility. How many different areas in the game can you use these champions? In the beginning, it's going to be like, you know, basically the dungeons and campaign farming. How many different areas can you use those champions? Arena as well. And then number 3, the third V is the viability in the end game, okay? How long will this champion last me if I invest in them? So again, value over replacement, versatility, and their value in the end game, or end game viability, if you want another V there for you guys. But how can you even tell what their value is? That's not enough. We can't just say that. Let's break it down again, early, mid, and late game. In the early game, first things first, you want to 6-star your starting champion. I'm a big fan of Kayle still. I think that Kayle still brings the most to the table in terms of the poisons. However, there's a lot of good options, obviously. I think Aethel is my second favorite. I think Aethel is incredibly underrated. Then I would go Elhain, and nothing against Galek, but he would be my 4th favorite. Either way, you want to invest in that champion because the next thing you should do after you get them 6-starred, fully ascended, and get all their masteries, after you do that, especially you guys just starting the game right now, and these veterans watching the video, they'll tell you as well, things get a lot easier.
Run.
First, it's an extra grind to grind out your first couple 6-star champions, to grind out your first masteries. It's really, I don't know, Plarium ought to do something about that, right? A little bit of a catch-up mechanic, right? Do you think it's time for that? I think it is, because can you imagine being a new player right now? I don't know. It still takes the same amount of time to get started the first month or 2 of the game. Either way, guys, farm up your first champion. Then you should be trying to find the key roles to a team. So what are the key roles to a team? Well, your starting champion is going to be your nuker, your damage dealer, your DPS champion, right? So you don't need to really go out the gate and go super strong in terms of DPS champions. You already have one in your starting champion, right? So Kayle can be your arena nuker, your campaign farmer, your DPS for dragon, your DPS basically for clan boss, anywhere, right? So that's your DPS. So it would be a mistake to start this game, and even for more seasoned players, to invest in too many nukers. You don't need, you know, 15 nukers on your account, okay? The second thing is, well, let's go ahead and pick up War Maiden, right? War Maiden is a campaign farmable champion from the Dreadlands, stage 9 in the campaign, and you're gonna want to get her, right? Because she has decreased defense on a 3-turn cooldown. So we're looking for key debuffs on a 3-turn cooldown. That's what we're looking for, really, whether it's the beginning, the mid, or the end game, right? Decreased defense is the biggest one. That's going to maximize your damage and makes everything a lot faster and smoother and more successful, because you're going to be able to kill those enemies well before they can kill you, right? So War Maiden, right? After that, you want some support champions, right? So one of my favorites to get early game, if you're lucky enough, she is a void, but she is a rare, is Reliquary Tender. I like her because she can revive, right? Reviving is great. You know, somebody dies, you pick them right back up. I remember the first time that I even knew that reviving was a thing. I'm talking about like the first couple weeks playing the game, and I was like, wow, revive is like, that's kind of like cheating, man. It's like, that's so easy, that's awesome, you know? That's my first experience in a gacha game, so I apologize that I was that naive. But she's also a great healer and a cleanser. So a 3-turn cleanse, we're gonna come back to this, but this is something, and that means cleanse means removes all debuffs from all allies, right? And then she's placing a continuous heal too. Continuous heals are great heals in this game. Like they do a lot of healing, and removing all debuffs from all allies. That's a money ability. There's not that many champions out there who have that, especially on a 3-turn cooldown like Reliquary Tender. There's probably around 10 of them in the game, right? So there's not that many, maybe a couple more, but especially the 3-turn cooldown. Really valuable. So the champions like that are great. Even champions like if you're not lucky enough to pull her, there's a champion called Gear Grinder, right? He also has a revive, granted on a 5-turn cooldown, but you know, having a reviver is nice. Also has a heal in there as well. Of course, the most popular one probably that people talk about in the early game is Apothecary, right? These are great options. Not only is he healing on a 2-turn cooldown, which can be critical, but he's bringing a great dungeon aura for you too. That's going to help you out against all the dungeon bosses, right? And the potion keeps in everything, every dungeon, right? Also bringing increased speed, which is one of the quintessential buffs, that we'll get to in just a moment. Now, the last category after support that you're going to want to think about investing in, probably a couple champions in all of these categories as you progress in the early game, is going to be a control champion, right? So a couple of my favorite controls are Bellower. He's got all these debuffs, fantastic champion, and you can put him in a stun set because champions that have multiple AoEs or an AoE attack on their A1, such as Frazzle, Bellower's A1 ability, every single one of those hits against every single enemy is going to have an 18% chance of landing a stun. And that stun landing is not predicated on their accuracy as it would be if that stun came from a skill of theirs. If it's coming from artifacts, they don't need the accuracy. And if you pick up the tier 6 mastery, Fearsome Presence, well, that's going to give you a 23% chance of a stun. That increases the stun likelihood by 5%. Let me show you that mastery just in case you guys are unfamiliar. It's right over here. Fearsome Presence, increase the chances of placing a stun by 5% from artifacts or skills. So having a stun set in Fearsome Presence mastery, if you can farm those masteries up on a champion with multiple AoEs like Bellower, is going to be a great option there. There's a bunch of great champions out there for control. Another one of my absolute faves for a rare is Gnarlhorn, man. Like, this guy's a beast, especially in the early game. He's got a 3-turn provoke, again, 3-turn cooldown, is what we're really looking for on all these buffs and debuffs, right? Plays a provoke and increased defense on himself and an unkillable on himself for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown when you book him up. That's really, really good. So a great control champion here in Gnarlhorn as well. So again, control, your DPS is going to be your starter, a debuffer, and what you want to do is just basically start mastery farming, get your mastery team established, get your arena team established. A nice arena team would be a champion like Apothecary for a speed boost, your nuker, a champion like Kale, War Maiden to debuff, and then kind of a flex position in that 4th spot, okay? Start thinking about your dungeon teams in the early game, right? So start thinking about, again, going back to champions who are versatile. Champions who are going to be able to help you in multiple different dungeons in the game. All right, then we're going to start to get to the mid game, right? Now you really want to, you don't want to ignore clan boss in the early game, but now you really want to focus on your clan boss team. Demon Lord is the only way in this game to reliably farm on a daily basis. Sacred Shards, Legendary Skill Tomes, Epic Skill Tomes, Immortal Gear, Cruel Gear, all of this is some of the best stuff that's, you know, some of it exclusive to the Demon Lord clan boss that you can get in this game. So optimizing your clan boss team is going to be super important. Now in the mid game, you're going to start to want to think about running an unkillable team because unkillable is really the predominant meta right now inside Raid Shadow Legends. So I would advise you guys to check out Deadwood Jedi's website, deadwoodjedi.com. Check out all his clan boss comps, all his clan boss teams. There's plenty of options there that kind of suits each of of your accounts depending on where you are in your progression. So clan boss is going to be massive to focus on. Also, it bears mentioning that you want to look for a clan that's around, the same level as you are, right? You want your clan to be, fighting and beating clan boss difficulties that kind of jives with where you can 1 or 2 key, okay? So in my clan, we're kind of in the end game, so we're killing Nightmare, Ultra Nightmare, and Brutal every single day. And of course, eventually, once you get to Ultra Nightmare and Nightmare, that's when you can start getting those sacred shards all the time. It's so much, obviously, so much more efficient than spending on these things. They cost like $20, $30 each. You can get them simply by finishing or beating the Demon Lord. Granted, there are a smaller drop rate, but you can get like 1 a week or so.
You know what? I may not shoot you, but you have still royally pissed me off.
After that, right, we want to look for the essential buffs and debuffs again on 3-turn cooldowns. So what are those essential buffs and debuffs? Well, for me, and this is what I look for in a champion that I'm going to invest in, right? For me, I'm looking at a champion like, let me just pull up, I'm just going to pull up random examples here, guys. But I'm looking for decreased speed. I love decreased speed. I love decreased defense, especially. And I love decreased attack, right? So decreased defense, decreased speed, and decreased attack are my favorite debuffs. A lot of people probably would not put decreased speed up there because, not everybody is going to be, affected by decreased speed or turn meter control. But for me, decreased speed is one of the most important debuffs out there in the game. I put it right on par with decreased attack and decreased defense. But either way, guys, those are going to be the most important, debuffs to look for on champions. So make sure you invest in those champions. Also, in terms of the most important buffs, well, look at Strengthen. The big version of Strengthen, ideally, is going to be absolutely tremendous. Let me go ahead and pick up my man Sigmund the High Shield, for example. He's got the big version of Strengthen and a shield on a 3-turn cooldown. So again, look for big version of Strengthen champions. Strengthen buff is one of the most powerful and often overlooked buffs inside the entire game. Maybe a better example would be a champion like Whirlwind Frost King. This dude has both Strengthen and increased defense on the same ability on a 3-turn cooldown. You might struggle finding a champion that brings all the buffs that you need on a 3-turn cooldown. Another good investment would be a buff extension champion, such as Godseeker Aniri. There's a bunch of them out there, but look for this ability. Increase the duration of all buffs on, all buffs on all allies by 1 turn, okay? That is an incredibly underrated ability, especially for new players. Very, very powerful. So a buff extender can basically get you that extra turn if you're struggling finding those champions with those key buffs on a 3-turn cooldown, okay? So again, increased defense going to be very important. Strengthen's going to be very important. Increase speed, and then increase attack for the arena, helping out your nuker, of course. So speaking of your nuker, you really want to start working on your Arbiter missions, and you want it in the mid game. You want to make sure that you're not falling behind in your missions and eventually unlocking Arbiter. She's going to be a key to speed farming your arena. Speaking of arena, you really want to optimize and focus on your arena team. You want to focus mainly on speed. Don't be afraid to be selective and be picky when you choose your team that you want to go against inside the arena. Don't feel like you have to attack everybody. Go for the easy wins and just try to get a lot of them, right? Because you really want to invest in your Great Hall. I would suggest you guys prioritize your accuracy first, and then either your crit damage, your defense, your resist. It depends on, who you are, what you value, but that's what I would go with. I would probably go accuracy, defense, crit damage, resist would be my order, and then HP attack. But of course, some people prefer to, kind of spread it out, right? Go a few levels on each. To me, there's really no right or wrong way, as long as you're not prioritizing attack, which is a common early mistake, because if you're prioritizing attack in the Great Hall, it's only affecting about half the champions in the game, if not less, because a lot of champions can benefit, every champion can benefit from defense or HP, even if their attack is based on attack, but not vice versa. Okay, so after that, working on Arbiter, focusing on 4 key champions in the end game, right? Eventually, 2 daily login reward champions, Scylla Drakes, my girl. Let's take a look at those skins. Let's take a look at those skins here, Syl. Okay, don't let me down. Oh, you're looking good, sister. Silda Drake's one of the best champions out there. You're going to get her as a daily login reward. She's got the stun, she's got revival, she's got heals as well. She's got decreased speed on the A1. Great champion, and everybody's going to have her eventually, right? The other one you're going to have eventually is going to be none other than Vizix the Unbowed. Incredibly good champion, guys. She has an AoE decreased speed. We talked about that. Ally Protect is the biggest damage mitigator in the game. Strengthen mitigates 25% or 15% of all damage that an enemy will take, or that an ally will take, a champion will take. Ally Protect is mitigating 50% of all that damage. It's incredible, but you have to keep the ally attack champion alive, right? Make sure you're keeping them alive. Ally attack champions generally go in the last spot in your rotation as well. I have a rotation video. If you guys want to check out that guide after this one, I'll link it in the description below if you want more about that. She also has an AoE provoke, and she has a shield on herself, so keeping herself alive and crowd control at the same time. Very, very good champion. The other two champions that you want to focus on here is going to be Mithrala. That's why you want to focus on the Hydra clan boss. Mithrala you'll probably get last out of all these champions, but she's insanely good. One of my favorite champions inside the entire game, and you get her from fragments that you get from the Hydra clan boss. She has an increased defense, increased attack, a shield, and a strengthen, and a cleanse. That's a lot, guys. That's a lot. CC on the passive, she's one of the best champions out there. So that's what you want to be focusing on. The last champion, guys, is going to be Drexstar Blood Twin, who you can get from fragments inside your tag team arena. So you also want to start thinking about your tag team arena teams so you can eventually get enough gold bars to buy yourself a Drexstar Blood Twin. He is one of the best champions, specifically against Doom Tower bosses, a bunch of them, right? He can solo a bunch of Doom Tower bosses, so he's really going to help you out as you start challenging yourself, getting on higher levels and higher difficulties inside the Doom Tower, okay? Next up,
When is this gonna end?
I guess that's it. The last thing about the mid game, right, is start working on optimizing your dungeon teams, right? I think the end game starts when you're able to clear every level 25 dungeon, and that's what I would, focus on mainly if I were you guys, right? Once you get to around level 25, start optimizing your teams, save yourself some time, right? Because time is pretty valuable in this game, and start trying to get a little bit faster, but just make sure that you still have a 100% win rate. It doesn't make any sense to sacrifice a little bit of your win rate. For example, a team that's winning 5 out of every 6 battles, you're just wasting energy, right? If you're a little bit faster, 10 seconds faster, but you're losing more, you're going to lose time and you're going to be wasting energy. So don't do that, okay? Going into the end game, guys, look for champions again who can fill multiple roles on multiple teams, right? We're getting really greedy here with these champions. You guys know that my favorite, or a lot of you guys probably know my favorite epic in the game is Ugo. I love her because she has a little cleanse, she has a big heal, she has a block buff, she has decreased defense. Block buff's another really important debuff out there in the game. She's doing so much. She also has kind of a niche little revival in her kit that champions like this I absolutely love. In the end game, you're also going to be focusing on beating all of your faction wars. One more note on the early game about faction wars or early to mid game, is don't be afraid to invest in champions up to level 50. Some more support champions or control champions with AoEs on their A1 like we talked about, right? Don't be afraid of just taking them to level 50 to help you out in having a well-balanced faction war team. That way, eventually, you can get your hands on, why do I keep going to Knight Revenant, man? You can get your hands on Lydia. So Lydia in the end game will be your first priority, right? Getting Lydia is going to be insane. Talking about champion that can fill multiple roles, she's got decreased defense, she got weakened, she got increased speed and strengthened on the same 3-turn cooldown ability. That is just absolutely broken and nasty, okay? So we're going to focus on getting Lydia and beating all our faction wars, 3-starring every single faction crypt, right? Ignore champions that you're not going to use. The great example here is this fusion, right? Marinix going on right now. Doesn't seem like an awful champion. Seems like she could be a great damage dealer. However, I don't need her, right? I have plenty of damage dealers. We talked about this earlier in the video. I don't need her, so don't waste your resources, right? Because your resources are still going to be finite even though you're in the end game. I see a lot of end game players taking the gotta catch them all approach to this game, and while it can be fun, nothing wrong with that, it also will probably tend to having you max out a bunch of champions that you don't use at all inside your vault. So make sure that you don't feel pressure, at least any internal pressure or clan pressure or whatever, to go after champions. Let's open a shard here.
Dude!
To go after champions that you just don't need, right? Optimize your 3 Hydra clan boss teams. Ultimate Galek, what's up, man? What's up? Start optimizing in the end game your 3 tag team arena teams and your 3 Hydra clan boss teams, right? So tag team arena is fantastic. Well, some people like it. I like it, right? But you really want to get all of your 3 teams as good as you possibly can, right? It's fun to do if you like PvP, if you like the arena aspect of Raid Shadow Legends. And having 3 teams requires, well, a lot of champions, right? You need 12 really solid champions for your 3 tag team arena teams, and then heck, you need 18 amazing solid champions, well-balanced teams for the Hydra clan boss, right? So it's a lot of teams, a lot of champions, a lot of key roles. We have plenty of guides out there on Hydra and arena and stuff like that if you're looking for some fun outside the box ideas for teams. But basically, you really want to make sure you're getting in there and focusing on those areas, and having multiple options at all those key roles that we talked about: the 3-turn cleanser, strengthen, increase defense, decrease attack, decrease speed, etc. For each affinity, right? You're going to need different affinity options as you progress later into this game. I would say the last thing is just finishing. This is one thing I have not done yet on my account. Shame on me. Is actually getting to the point where you can get Ramatu Drake's Blood, right? So he's the final champion that you get from the Arbiter missions, right? You just keep going and eventually you're going to get Ramatu Drake's Blood. Another great champion, very unique, very, very good, especially in the arena as well. So I guess Lydia and Ramatu to me would be like the end game focuses on champions that you want to unlock. Guys, I hope this helped you out in terms of just giving you ideas, putting some thoughts in your mind on the type of champions, the type of decisions that I make when trying to weigh out, okay, you know, how can I use this champion? Where can I use this champion? And should I be using this champion? Hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Sending much love. Don't forget to tell me how much you love King of Queens in the comments below. Thank you. And as always, take care, guys.